Hi everyone, it's Imran again. I'm just going to provide you with a very quick summary of the Barber-Rizwan partnership, and we'll just start off with some quick stats. So in terms of the overall record, this is exceptional in terms of the number of runs scored. So up until the game before the last one in the series of the Pakistan-England series, they had achieved 2,400 runs. They are the only pair that has scored 1,000 runs within a calendar year in T20 cricket. And not content with that, they did that again in 2022. But as you can see from this, in terms of the averages over the years, we've gone from 55 in 2021 down to 44 in 2022, and amongst a very limited number of games, down to 42.5 in 2023. Strike rate hasn't really changed that much. It's gone down about 8 runs per 100 balls in 2021 to 2022, and it's increased to the highest amount in 2023. But again, this is based just on 4 games. Now, I'm going to break down the stats in terms of what it's like when they're chasing a total and when they are setting a total. I think this is a really key differentiator in terms of the Barber-Rizwan partnership. In terms of the win percentage, when they are batting second, that has decreased over time. So 70% in 2021, 41% in 2022, and they only chased 1 game and they were unsuccessful in 2023. But in terms of the average, 72 in wins in 2021, 71 in wins in 2022, but the real difference here is the difference between the average in wins and the average in losses. So it goes down to 35.5 in losses in 2021 and just 14 in 2022. The sole game that they played where they were chasing in 2023, they made 6. So this shows a bit of a decline in terms of the number of runs scored, but more importantly, the strike rate in losses is abysmal. So it's 107 in 2021, just 93 in 2022. Yes, they are scoring at less than a run a ball in those losses. So for me, when Barber and Rizwan are successful in the chase, when they're successful in a partnership, Pakistan are more likely to win, and there is a huge dichotomy here in terms of the average in wins and the average in losses. In terms of setting a total, the average in wins and average in losses doesn't follow the same pattern. So in 2021, that difference is about 5 runs, the difference between the average in wins and losses. Strike rate, slightly more different, so a difference of 10 runs per 100 balls in the strike rate and wins compared to the strike rate and losses. In 2022, the average is pretty much exactly the same, but the strike rate is slightly different, so they tend to score their runs slightly quicker in losses than they do in wins. And in 2023, based upon those 3 games, what we have is a difference in terms of 5 lower in losses again, and the strike rate doesn't appear to be very different. So a very different scenario when they are chasing and when they are setting a total. And this to me illustrates that Barber and Rizwan as an opening partnership are pivotal when chasing, and they directly impact upon the outcome, whereas when they are setting a total, they are less important, and it's probably more important for the other batsmen to contribute and the bowlers to obviously have a very good game as well. So this next slide shows the distribution in power plays and the total partnerships for this pair as well when opening. And one of the misconceptions I had was that Barber and Rizwan as an opening pair were batting too long and too slowly. What this demonstrates is that they just bat too slowly rather than too long. So when you look at all of these dots, they each represent a time that Barber and Rizwan's partnership came to an end. And what you see is that there is a lot of scatter within the early parts of the power play. This at the end tells us what the final power play scores were. So there's about 17 scores out of the 51 where they had a successful power play, i.e. they didn't break a partnership. And you see that the difference in terms of the runs scored varies from under 5 runs and over to almost 11 runs and over in the power play alone. Now this continues on again in terms of total partnerships, and you can see there's a clear line there which is highly indicative and predictive of the Barber and Rizwan partnership. So the longer they tend to bat, it's very predictable to show where they will be in terms of the number of runs that they've scored. So when setting a total, they've won 14 out of 25 games. That's about 56%. The median length of the partnership in this innings is about 26 balls, and the median score at that point is 30 runs. So again, going back to that common misconception that they're batting too long and they're batting too slowly, we can confirm that they're batting too slowly, they're just not batting long enough. And 26 balls is well below that power play, and they're not making the most of that power play if they're only going to score 30 runs. Above that median length of stay at the crease, so 26 balls, they've lost 6 above that, and they've lost 5 below that. So again, that tends to indicate that in terms of the distribution, it's fairly even on both sides, and they're not really driving results when they are setting a total. Now this next slide shows the statistics when chasing. So they've won 19 out of 26 chases, that's 73%. The median length of the partnership when chasing is just 29 balls, and the median score at that point is just 29 as well. Now this isn't something I was expecting. In my head I had them as slower starters when they were setting a total. It appears though, however, that they are slower starters when they are chasing a total, and that's because they have a target in mind. They chase with that particular target in mind, and the median chasing victory is achieved with just 6 balls to spare. So they time their chases very well. Above that median, they've lost 2 games. Below that median, they've lost 5 games. So again, that's indicative of the importance of Barber and Rizwan when chasing, because when they achieve that median length of stay, they're more likely to win, and when they don't, they're less likely to win. So again, just a really quick look in terms of some of the peculiarities in this, and it's something that was new to me as well, but for Rizwan and Barbara, obviously there is a huge difference in their averages. Rizwan averages, I think, close to 49 over the course of this opening partnership, and that's in all games. So if Barbara has got out, this is the continuation of his innings, and he will achieve on average 49 runs per innings. His average is higher when batting first and lower when chasing, and Barber is kind of the other way, although to less of a degree. His average overall is about 32 when opening with Rizwan. His average when batting first is lower, in the 20s, so I think it's about 28, and when he is chasing, it's about 36. So again, a very subtle differences in terms of this, but I can understand why, in terms of the opening partnership, why they changed to Rizwan and Saim, because overall it appears to help us in terms of batting first, and that has been one of our big issues. What this actually means in terms of the opening partnership is something that we'll discuss, but overall I think it's fair to say I think we need to be flexible in different approaches. So for example, with Rizwan, I think he would be better batting first, and Barbara would be better kind of shepherding that chase as and when that occurs. But there are these subtle differences between the two, and I think it's something that the Pakistan team needs to focus on such that they can maximize their chances of success. So when Rizwan and Barbara are chasing a total, well, when they successfully complete a power play, it's more likely to result in success. So of the 17 games in which they've completed that power play, they've only lost 3 times, and that was all whilst batting first. As I mentioned before, Pakistan time their chases, so the scores during the power play really reflect that, and when chasing they can vary anywhere between 4.67 runs per over all the way up to almost 11 runs per over, but the chases are determined predominantly by the score that's being chased and of course the batting conditions. But nevertheless, the underlying message here is that Rizwan and Barber, when they're chasing, are a fantastic partnership to continue with in the short term at least. but I think we have to take a different approach when Rizwan and Babar are setting a total. And this is much more complex. So obviously, in terms of the statistics and trying to predict what's going to happen in the future, we're basing that upon what's happened in the past. And that's where the statistics are derived from. But in essence, if we assume a score of around 200, if they achieve less than a quarter of the runs, so say for example around 50 runs in the power play, then either both batsmen need to continue until they've accounted for at least half of the total runs, or one of those batsmen needs to score at least a third of the total team score just to shepherd the rest of the batting order there. If the proportion of runs scored in that power play is greater than 25% of the overall innings score, so again, looking at this, if we were to have, say for example, 200 as that par score, if you have a power play score that's over 50, so more than 25%, then the batting pair needs to score more than 45% of the overall team score. So that's about 90 runs there. That is what helps in terms of aiding with success. So I think what we've seen overall is that there are differences and there are nuances in terms of how I would use this opening partnership. I think for batting first, I think you have to take a different approach potentially and utilize different batsmen. I would open with Rizwan and one other batsman. I think it depends on the scenario, it depends on the pitches. We've seen what some of the pitches in America look like at the moment, and they aren't fantastic in New York. It could be a great leveler for the game between Pakistan and India. But I think we have to take an approach that is very flexible. And I think this is where Pakistan have got significant issues because they're very rigid in the way that they think. They are very rigid in the way that they approach the game. And as a result of that, what you end up with is a team that isn't flexible at all. And I think flexibility within the shorter form of the game is the most important thing because it allows you to attack at different times when it's appropriate to do so, and it allows you to win more games more often than not. So these are my suggestions. This is where I think we stand, and if you have any views, any comments, any thoughts on this, I'd be more than happy to share this. I have another video which is a more detailed analysis, which is double this in terms of size of length, so please feel free to look at that, and that gives a bit more context in terms of some of the suggestions that I've made. Thank you very much.